Like a cover band for a much better act, this is the Daniel Natal Show. According to an article by PricewaterhouseCoopers, global mergers and acquisitions hit new highs in 2021, breaking prior records by a long shot. The number of announced deals exceeded 62,000 globally in 2021, up an unprecedented 24% from 2020. What's behind all these corporate mergers? It might be more shocking than you think. Before your eyes glaze over, consider the fact that after World War II, America experienced unprecedented prosperity. If you think China is dominant in manufacturing, you might be shocked to learn that they only produce about 15% of the world's goods. After World War II, when the rest of the world was blown up, America, according to economist Ha-Joon Chang in his book, Bad Samaritans, accounted for roughly 85% of manufactured goods in the 1950s. Of course, the post-war circumstances have changed. Europe is no longer blown up. Asia is industrializing. As a result, the United States has seen its market share decrease. And it's not just the United States, it's pretty much the whole West, which has seen its productivity decline. Noam Chomsky said that in the 1970s, a decision was taken to transition America away from a productive economy to a financial economy. What this means is that American corporations were going to use financial manipulation to make it appear as if post-war prosperity hadn't gone down. How? Well, first, late in the 1960s, a decision was made to double America's labor pool to synthetically depress wages. Labor is subject to the laws of supply and demand. The more common a thing is, the less valuable it is. So more workers equals lower pay as more people compete for a finite number of jobs. This was done by encouraging women to enter the workforce. It was corporate America who was behind the so-called feminist movement, to lure women away from families and to market to them the idea that they would find more fulfillment in a cubicle. For a while, this decrease in labor cost helped companies recoup their losses, but soon there were diminishing returns. So a new strategy happened, namely, to fire American workers altogether, to get slaves in sweatshops in Asia, and to pocket the difference in their pay. This is what goosed the economy after we took a hit in the 1970s. Also in the 1970s, they created the ERISA Act of 1974, which encouraged people to tie pension funds to Wall Street to get extra infusions of cash into the stock market. ERISA stood for the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. Just as the FDIC was created after the economic collapse in 1929 to renew faith in the banking industry, ERISA was designed to create confidence in the stock market and to normalize using pension money to prop it up. At the time, the economy seemed to be on an endless upswing, based on the boomers being the biggest generation in history. Because the boomers were starting families, they needed to buy houses. This led to a real estate boom. Because new families buy things like washing machines, cars, and refrigerators, there was a consumer goods boom. And now, because their pensions were flowing into the stock market, there was an unprecedented stock market expansion and subsequent boom. Because of demographics, things looked like they would keep going up, and the bubble would never burst. Of course, even at the time, they knew that a crash would be engendered by the retirement of the baby boomers. Once they drew down their savings and withdrew from the market, the bubble would burst. Once their kids grew up and left home, they would downsize, and all those extra houses flooding the market would cause real estate to collapse. According to Ellen Schultz in her book, Retirement Heist, in November 1999, a group of the nation's leading pension experts met at the Labor Department in Washington to discuss a $250 billion problem. After 8 years of double-digit returns, the pension plans at American corporations had more than $250 billion in excess assets. Not a shortage of assets, excess assets. At some companies, the surpluses had reached almost laughable levels. $25 billion at GE, $24 billion at Verizon, $20 billion at AT&T, $7 billion at IBM. Basically, these companies wanted access to these surpluses and wanted to change the law to allow them to get their hands on it. They argued that this extra money could help the companies, and isn't a healthy company the best insurance for a worker? In reality, they wanted this cash to close down factories in America and move operations overseas. So one of the uses of this money was bribing American workers to retire early. They would be given a little extra something in severance packages to get them to quit, after which they would give the job to an Asian or Mexican counterpart. This was especially pressing as pension funds were tied to seniority, and they wanted as many people in senior positions as possible to extract themselves from the labor pool. Another way corporations would squeeze the money out of the working class would be to cut their medical benefits. Many employees had no idea that their benefits were being lowered because these changes were hidden in so-called restructuring schemes. How did they get the opportunity to engage in restructuring? Why, mergers and acquisitions. Say, for instance, if Bell Telephone merges with GTE and becomes Verizon. In that merger, they have the opportunity to do a restructuring, at which point they pull a switcheroo. While Ellen Schultz said that originally the employees had all their pension funds fully funded, one group didn't: the people in the executive suite. They ended up siphoning out billions of dollars in wealth from the workers and transferring it to the people in the C-suite, so that a CEO might work at a company for only 2 years and walk away with a $400 million golden parachute. At any rate, understand what it means when PricewaterhouseCoopers says that we're seeing unprecedented upswings in mergers and acquisitions. What this means is that Wall Street is squeezing the last pennies out of everyone's pensions as the economy sours. As the boomers retire, that cushion that they were using to mask America's economic decline after World War II is dwindling away. And after the 2008 financial collapse and now COVID, much of the fake paper wealth that was initially created by the pension surpluses has collapsed. Investment banks like Goldman Sachs make most of their money overseeing mergers and acquisitions for other firms and helping them in their restructuring schemes. They also advise them on how to create subsidiaries to offload their liabilities, like pension funds in the subsidiary, thus boosting their balance sheet and manipulating their stock price. As for that subsidiary, it's quietly shut down and its employees fired, as operations are subsequently moved to Mexico. Asset manager BlackRock is just as bad as Goldman Sachs. It has one part of its business creating zombie companies that don't turn a profit, while the other half of their business consists of managing pension funds for teachers, cops, or firefighters, all of whose pensions are now stuffed with junk bonds and dummy stocks. You'd think that such a blatant conflict of interest would garner the attention of the SEC, or that such blatant violations of the ERISA Act would summon the Department of Justice. But so far, no such luck. And speaking of BlackRock, one of their former employees recently made the news by issuing a dire warning.
The global debt bubble is at its peak, and it's becoming apparent, given what's going on across the globe, that we're at the end. And due to that fact, we're going to see lots of crazy things in the financial markets. I think we're going to see the credit markets become unhinged, the equity markets become unhinged. The Fed got a reprieve from COVID when they were able to, at the cover of COVID, print 65% more money to keep this thing afloat. But we're at the end days here. And a lot of what you're seeing in the response from global governments is what I believe is setting up a system to, under the guise of medical tyranny, to prevent the riots that are going to ensue once this thing all unwinds. That's my personal belief, and I watch what people do, know what they say.
Wall Street has looted Main Street, and because of demographic reasons and the retirement of the baby boomers, those chickens may be coming home to roost. The John Birch Society provides a national program designed to counter the big government agenda and to restore our rights. Standing for constitutional freedoms for more than 60 years, the John Birch Society has been the force that protects and restores American liberty and independence. Check them out at jbs.org.